Hi friends, welcome back. Join me as I paint this gorgeous tropical fruit, the Rani pineapple, known for its deep golden hues, spiky green crown, and textured pattern across its surface. I will be going for an impression style painting in oils, starting right at the beginning with an underpainting and blocking in colors. Look out for some key moments in color mixing, like how I achieve luminous warm yellows or minty greens without them turning muddy, or how to balance high chroma tones with subtle neutrals for depth. So let's get started on this vibrant tropical still life. I start by staining the canvas. I use burnt sienna mixed with solvent to create a dilute, lean mixture as the first or base layer that dries quickly. It also allows for subsequent oil paint layers to adhere properly, following the fat over lean principle. I then proceed to sketch out the subject using freehand using the same pigment burnt sienna. If you're not comfortable with sketching freehand, do check out my video on using the grid method that allows you to scale up sketches onto a canvas. Look out for links above and in the description below. I try and capture the light and shadow areas while I'm at this stage. I use a paper towel to dab off the staining from some parts to indicate lighter values and direction of the light source. For the next phase, I study the anatomy of the fruit. If you look closely, a pineapple isn't just yellow. It's a beautiful mix of rich golds, fiery oranges, earthy neutrals, and even hints of green where the fruit transitions to its leafy crown. The leaves, often spiky and sharp-edged, have a mix of deep greens and even blue undertones, catching light in different ways. Each segment or eye has its own gradient of color, creating an intricate pattern across the surface. For color prepping, I choose in yellow some warm yellow ochre, mid-cadmium yellow, and a cool tone Naples yellow. I line up some cadmium orange, vermilion, and mid-red for convenience. I keep ready a warm and cool green, staining blues for the background, and titanium white. I start with the fruit section in the foreground. I spend time mixing cool and mid-yellows with orange to form gradients since I don't want to use any color straight from the tube. I add warm yellow ochre to form an earthy deep hue for the darker values. With a flat bright brush number 4, I then start to block in colors, focusing on creating square-like shapes in each segment of the pineapple. I use the darker tones that I mixed earlier towards the shadow side of the composition. With the burnt sienna in the background, it almost appears like a glaze while applying this darker tone. On the side where the light source is, I use the lighter values of the yellow hues I mixed earlier. Friends, 2 steps that have changed the way I do oil painting now. They are imprimatura and blocking in. I'll cover more of this in my other oil painting videos too. Check the link above or in the description below. In the same way, I go on to then blocking in the crown of green leaves using mid and dark tones to establish basic shapes and lights and shadows. You will see later on day 2 how I create highlights of lighter value, almost minty green on these leaves, so do stick on. For the background, I use a larger flat brush number 22 to block in some highly chromatic and staining phthalo blue. I also use this to strengthen the darker tones in the leaves of the crown. At this point, I bring in some mid-red mixed with the blue to darken the background with a deep purple look. Something that I was not happy with, as the saturation increased too much in the background and the contrast with the pineapple was much too high. I solved this later in the video. I used some of the leftover colors from my first palette to block in the base colors of the table. By now, I have on my palette some natural greys, neutral browns and purple from all the color mixing. I use some of the light value purple mixed with yellows to create the shadows of the pineapple. Remember, purple and yellow are complementary colors, and when mixed, they form natural looking shadows. Using the same neutrals, I start to give form to the eyes of the pineapple. I am not going for a detailed look on this at the moment. I dab off some of the excess deep blue paint from the background as it was just not feeling right and was too saturated. Since I was getting paint onto my tabletop easel while doing this, I switched to an A-frame easel. I continue to paint each eye of the pineapple in a loose impression and add the hair with light value yellow, which is Naples yellow and titanium white, using a round number 3 brush. I just couldn't get through day one without fixing the background. So I decided to go with the flow, and I used a beautiful turquoise blue from the tube. With expressive brush strokes, I liked what I was seeing now. The extreme contrast of the yellow-orange pineapple against the saturated deep blue-purple background was reducing and was not so stark anymore. At the same time, this new vibrant background seemed a better choice for a fresh tropical fruit. At long last, day one ended on a good note. The next day, I focused on adding highlights, a real fun part, and adding layers to where it was needed. I start with a crown of leaves and mix for this part cool Naples yellow with a mid-warm green, which is chromium oxide, and titanium white. This makes a beautiful light minty green. I also have on my palette a warmer permanent green for some leaves where I wanted the fresh green to pop. For the body of the pineapple, I add more layers. I use cadmium orange as my base color. It has high chroma or color intensity, which when I add titanium white to, desaturates and becomes a lighter value pastel orange. Not something that I was going for. So I add two options of mid and warm yellow, and then I get a range of bright tinted orange hues that I love and closer to what I was looking for. I mix blue and orange to get a neutral grey and tint it with white to get the perfect highlight colour for the hair. Muted purple makes a great choice, mixed with the dull range in the background to form the shadows. I lighten up the pale background below on the side of the light source and retain the dark shadow of the pineapple falling sideways. I strengthen some of the darker tones of the pineapple to help add depth. With just a few more details, I am now done with this painting. It's time to eat the pineapple. Friends, I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed painting the subject. Drop a comment on what you liked best or would do differently. I'll see you in my next video. Happy painting!